Hi guys, I thought I'd do a kind of weird but fun video. So recently I've watched the series of Beastars and read the manga and it's really good. Some top tier furry stuff. I'm just kidding. No, I mean it is furry stuff, don't get me wrong. But it's really good and something that I think like it's mature and shonen-esque but like intelligent. I don't know. I mean not that shonen isn't intelligent, but sometimes it's I don't know. I just think it's really cool. And what I'm going to be doing is a Beastars tier list. I guess that's what they're called. Um, and I'm going to be ranking the Beastars character not by how much I like them, but how like good of a person I think they are. Like basically, I'm going to judge like their morality. Okay. And we're not going to be doing every single character, of course, because you can't. Um, we're only going to be judging kind of like the more main characters or people that have enough screen time to kind of be counted, because obviously like it's kind of hard to judge like a very minor character's morality. And I am going to try to be kind of nuanced about it. Of course, I believe in like objective morality and truth and good and evil. Some people don't. So this is going to be based on the way I view morality, which I do believe is like um, the correct way. But of course, everybody has different ideas of what is that way to them. So it's going to be based on kind of what I believe is right and wrong and what I believe to be true. And it's mostly just for fun, so don't take it very seriously. So we're just going to go through the different characters and yeah, kind of see where they fall on the list. So where S is going to be the best, like they're basically sinless, just like super amazing, and then it's going to go all the way to E. E is like the worst you can be on my tier list. They're like scum. They're like just awful. Like they need to stop immediately and like go educate themselves and like just no. Okay, so we're gonna start with Legoshi. So Legoshi is our main boy, um, and I think that he is quite a good person. Obviously, he's a hero by pretty much any metric. He definitely has done things wrong, but I think overall his good things outweigh his bad things quite extensively. For example, he chooses to fight. Oh, by the way, I want to say Beastar spoilers for the manga, um, pretty much all the way to current. Although I'll try to stop kind of like around 160, and I'm not going to go into too many specifics, but oh, thank goodness I got. So there's going to be like Beastar spoilers, and this for past the anime. Season one of the anime is on Netflix if you want to go watch it. And like so, just spoiler warning. Like leave if you don't want any spoilers because yeah, like we don't want to do that. I'll put a spoiler warning at the beginning actually, but okay. So Legoshi he fights Rizz like by himself, um, and basically to like, well, I guess you could argue that that was selfish. So like he fights Rizz the bear to like fight about their ideals, and you could argue also to protect the herbivores. But if he really wanted to protect the herbivores, wouldn't he have just gone to the police instead of like dueling Rizz by himself? But you could argue also that he was being good and showing like kind of compassion to Rizz and not immediately turning him in, but rather like um, choosing to like fight him and confront him himself. Of course, you could also argue that he's being selfish and not reporting it since he's putting Pina and a lot of the other herbivores in the club in danger and having Rizz continue to be around them without them knowing the truth of his crime. But then you could also argue that Legoshi, Rizz is like obviously like mentally like ill to some extent, so that he's showing compassion to Rizz and attempting to understand him during their fight and like really trying to know the struggles that Rizz went through that like led him to that like horrible crime. So but then again, Legoshi also he saved Haru from the Shishigumi in season one, risking his own life and limb to save a girl that he loved. Um, and I obviously this is just objectively a good thing. Um, and he obviously like risked his own bodily harm to do so. He's very respectful of Haru, and he doesn't want to like be with her in a like very intimate way before their marriage. So I think that's great. And he's very like giving, and he tries to stand up for other people. He can be a little like self-righteous sometimes, but he's overall a really good person. So I'm gonna put Legoshi in the A rank. Really good, but definitely some things he does are more, I think, for him than for the herbivores, which I think he kind of addresses later in the manga. He's like, oh, I thought I was doing this for like the justice of the herbivores, but like it's just my herbivore like fixation or whatever. So pretty funny. But overall, for whatever reason, I think Louis says something like this, like it doesn't matter why you're doing something good because like the end result is so good. And I agree, like Legoshi does like net positive for society on like a bunch of levels. He saved lots of innocent people. He's helped bring down like savage carnivores that have like lost control. He's like stopped drug dealers. He's basically just been a pretty overall great person. So I'm gonna. So the next character we're gonna do is my boy, the legend, the myth, the baby Louis. I love him so much. He's my actual child, and I just want him to be safe, and I love him so much. So yeah, a total Louis stan. So even though I'm tempted to give Louis an S because he's amazing, I don't think my little dear boy is gonna get an S. He has definitely done some questionable things, including being a boss of an organized crime syndicate of lions. And yeah, no, he killed the boss of the Shishigumi. He did so to like save Legoshi and Haru, but it was still, you know, probably not justified. And you know, also obviously at first when he's with the Shishigumi, he's kind of there against his will, but later he's very into it. Well, I don't know how into it is. He's kind of just like jaded and sad, and so he's like, I'm in the dark now. I'm edgy. Um, so you could also make the argument that like he was a victim getting into that circumstance, so you can't really blame him for things after. But he definitely does some questionable things while he's there. And if nothing else, that he is at least complicit in a lot of the crimes being committed. You know, whether it's carnivores like selling their body parts for hyper drugs, or you know, the selling of sentient corpses on the market, or you know, the attacking of rival gangs and beating them up or straight up murdering them. You know, especially at the end when it was when Legoshi's beginning to duel Rizz, like Louis is fighting a wolf gang with the Shishigumi. Like we're pretty sure that some of those wolves got killed. And so yeah, he's definitely some questionable things. I want to, and you could say maybe it was a moral failing of him to not originally go save Haru in the first arc with the Shishigumi, but we do know that he eventually does go, and he ends up saving Legoshi and Haru's life, although with a murder. So kind of like double-edged sword there. Like he did a good thing, but obviously a very bad thing as well. You could say that he's done some really good things as well. For example, when Bill and Legoshi are fighting on stage in the first season, Louis comes out there and breaks up the fight, and that was very brave of him because he would be triggered. But yeah, he is a deer, so obviously I don't think he thought this would happen, but if Bill or Legoshi decided to get violent with him, or he decided to physically put himself in between them, he could obviously get seriously injured. And that's not to mention that he had a broken leg at the time, so he obviously put himself through physical pain to break up the fight, and risked like making that injury worse for the performance and to stop that. And another thing that is like a good thing, kind of a sweet moment, he doesn't have too many of, is when he actually, after that fight, he actually helps Legoshi up. And instead of, you know, he chastises him later for obvious reasons, but he basically says, like, you're okay, like, it's all okay now. Like, and I was like, I'm crying. Like, and in that moment, like, Louis shows, like, compassion to Legoshi, and that he understands, like, what he does. Later, I think Louis becomes a much better person. He loses his prejudice against carnivores in Arc 2, and he realizes that they're, you know, people just like herbivores. He basically becomes like a carnivore simp. I'm just kidding. But and you could argue that he's very compassionate after that. He's compassionate in the fact that he when he has that chance to say something to Rizz at the end of the fight after Rizz is being arrested, he has a chance to, say something that would scar him forever, but he decides to be kind instead and to apologize for not seeing how Rizz was struggling. And I thought that was a very sweet thing for him to do. And another thing to do that I think was a good thing was, it's questionable, but when Louis offers Legoshi himself, that's so freaking weird, to eat. Gosh, if you haven't watched Beastars, why are you watching this? But that is also very selfless because he sees it as the only way that Legoshi's going to live, and he's willing to sacrifice a piece of himself. Or he even says later that he just wanted Legoshi him entirely. So that was very selfless that he was able to give himself in the most literal way to Legoshi for sustenance. Oh gosh, so weird. So I guess you could say that was a moral good, or at least very selfless. Although you could maybe say why do they have to go to that extreme? But I definitely wouldn't say it's a moral failing. It's quite good. Much later in season 3, when he meets Haru and stuff again, he encourages her to live and to work through her problems instead of just allowing herself to be eaten. So he's definitely done some good things. The fact that he is later in season 3, or it's not a season, but in the Melon arc, that when he's with the Shishigumi, he's very compassionate with them, and that he tells them that they should be allowed to eat meat, and he just has a very big heart underneath his little tough deer exterior. So I don't know. I don't know where to put him. This is a rant. Morality wise, Louis is kind of in between. He's not the best person, but he's not the worst, in terms of what he does and his morality. He's just a deer trying to live his life in whatever way that is, whether it's as a mob boss, as heir of the Horns conglomerate. Louis is just trying to figure it out. So I'd say he's a pretty neutral character, as in he's definitely done bad and good things, but he doesn't really have the intention to do either good or bad things. He just wants to do it. He just wants to I don't know, he wants to be strong in whatever it is that he does, and he wants to succeed. So I'm gonna go ahead and give him a C rank, because I think he's kind of neutral in terms of his morality. And don't get me wrong, he's definitely committed some severe crimes, but he's also done some things that are quite good and show that he has a very good nature. So yeah, that's Louis. All right, next we've got to do the girls. So I figured I'd start with Haru. Haru is, I think, similar to Louis in her neutrality. Haru is mostly just concerned with living her own life the way she wants to and trying her best to be a small animal and a woman in the world of Beastars. She's not really interested in making great societal changes or doing bad things. She's just trying to live her life and be happy. So in what we actually see Haru do, we know that Haru is quite forgiving. We know that she finds out that Legoshi was the one that assaulted her and almost ate her in the first season, but she forgives him for that. And she basically says that, she's able to forgive, even though that was quite a big thing to forgive, honestly. And so in that way, she's very selfless. Another thing is that she clearly is a very strong lover when she wants to be, as in not in a weird way, but for example, when she's with someone she actually desires a relationship with, such as Legoshi or previously Louis before they kind of, broke up or stopped seeing each other, she did genuinely care for both those men and genuinely wanted to make them happy and to be around them and to support them and love them in a real, compassionate way. And, she wanted to try to make them feel good and to just cultivate a real supportive, loving bond between her and the man that she was in love with. Haru, her only moral failing, you could say, maybe is her more promiscuous tendencies, and of course that is something that different people feel differently about, but I think you probably shouldn't be sleeping around with that many people, if not for yourself and respecting yourself. If you do think about, we do know that she broke up relationships, and she was sleeping with men who she knew had girlfriends, or heaven forbid that it was anything more than that. But I do say that that's definitely a moral failing for her to know that, you know, the man that she was with was in a committed relationship to another woman, and to like still do that is obviously like wrong, because you're not respecting her or him or yourself. So and Haru says why she was so sexually promiscuous later, and later she kind of stops that behavior after she really falls for Legoshi and wants to be like loyal and faithful to him. So I think that's great, and I think that's great that she has like moved past having to do that in her life to like feel validated all the time, or to feel equal. I like that now she is trying to learn to feel equal and validated, but without having to rely on that specifically. Other than that, like honestly, I can't think of too many things that Haru has done. I mean, I would say she's definitely like one thing, she's very loving, like with the people that she cares about, and she doesn't hold grudges at all. Like another thing that comes to mind is when Legoshi basically like when she comes to his apartment in the Melon arc, and he basically is like, oh, like avoiding her, and he's like, oh, I ate Louis's leg and stuff. Like she isn't repulsed or like horrified or like I'm never going to talk to you again. In fact, she's like, you're going to tell me what happened, and like she just accepts Legoshi for like who he is and what he's done, and so she's very not judgmental in that way, and very accepting, and I think that is, and like forgiving, and I think that's great. So I would definitely say that's a moral positive, and she's very giving, and she doesn't she's definitely not like, for example, Juno. When her and Juno have that cute chapter together in the garden in the Melon arc, or I guess it's kind of in the middle. Maybe it's in the Rizz arc. I don't remember. But you know, Juno and her had a pretty bad interaction before. Juno basically saying she was gonna like take Legoshi, and then of course Juno taking Legoshi like up on stage and stuff at the end of the Meteor Festival arc. So you can imagine if Haru was like a less forgiving woman, she may hold a grudge against Juno and kind of resent her for that. But she doesn't, and in fact, she's just like, "Hey, you want to come help me garden?" So I would say that Haru is like a pretty good person overall. I think she's very kind, and she definitely has some failings, but nothing too much. So I think I'm gonna give her a B rank. A B rank sounds good. All right, so now we're gonna do the other main girl, Juno. Juno's like honestly just a straight up great person. Like, I don't really have much to say other than like she's a really good moral person. She wants to make the world safe and better and happier for the entire carnivore race. So that's very selfless. You could argue maybe it's a little selfish because she's a carnivore, so of course she wants less prejudice against carnivores. But Juno is very open about her desires to make the world a better place, and for coexistence to be a real thing. And of course she's more focused on the carnivore side of it, but I think that is a noble goal. You could argue maybe she's ignoring the herbivore sides of the argument, but she's never actively tried to suppress or dismiss herbivore voices, rather just expressed her strong desire for carnivores to have a place in the light in this world. And so I don't think that is any major moral failing. You could argue that maybe when she pins Louis to the floor in the first one, that she maybe went a little too far, as he didn't consent to being pinned to the ground. But since no actual harm happens, she doesn't actually physically harm him or even emotionally abuse him. Of course, it's still not right that she did that without his consent. That's obviously horrible, but he walks away from it pretty okay, and so does she. So while it maybe wasn't the best thing to do, I'm gonna go ahead and give her a little bit of a pass for that, even though maybe I shouldn't. But she's actually done some good things in relation to Louis too. One of the big examples being when Louis is, he's run away from school and he's being a mafia boss, that she actually goes there and she tries to basically encourage him to come back. And I do think, obviously Louis is entitled to make his own choices, but I would say that it's pretty not an arguable thing that encouraging your friend not to live a life of crime and instead go back to society is probably like net positive. And the fact too that she doesn't, necessarily like, degrade him or insult him for his choices. She more just states her position, and she does clearly say that she thinks that his decision is wrong. And you know, she encourages him to try to make good choices, so that is obviously good. And yeah, and later, Juno, you know, when she's actively pursuing, you know, Louis, she, you know, she is a bit pushy, but obviously, not so much that I think that anything bad is happening. And she speaks her mind and says, you know, when she thinks that something isn't right. So I think that's a good trait overall. Another just like good fact is that like Juno, like for you know, like she doesn't have to, but later she's kind of seen to be more at peace with Haru. So it's good that she doesn't hold any like, you know, long lasting grudges, it seems. Of the girl who kind of stole her the man she wanted. One thing you could argue against Juno's like perfect record is that she is like for a while in season 2 she considers like what's wrong with segregation, so she's like a segregationist, but I don't think that comes from a place of malice, maybe just ignorance. And she says, you know, like, oh, like I don't have anything against herbivores, but like we should just like stay apart so it's like more peaceful, and not really realizing the full like extent of what that would mean. And later she kind of comes around to agree with the rest of the drama club and understand Haru and herbivores a little bit more. So even though the manga hasn't made it explicitly clear where she sits now, obviously we know now that she has a crush on Louis, and she actively still participates with the drama club, even though they're supposed to be shut down. So we can assume that her segregationist idea has probably been lifted. So for that reason, overall, I'm gonna give Juno, I don't know, maybe an S. Okay, I'm gonna go with an S. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's definitely done some things. Like, she was kind of rude to Haru, and, you know, she, like, pinned Louis to the ground. But overall, I think that Juno's, like, a really good person, actually. She's determined, she's wants to help other people, make society better, and I think she's learning more every day. And I really can't think of anything that she did that is like really faulty. Even when she had those kind of segregationist ideas, she just privately kept them to herself and didn't make anybody feel bad. And in fact, she kind of wanted to understand, but she was struggling, and then eventually she does. So Juno, a good girl, best girl, and yeah, I'm gonna give her an A. Okay. So the next character I think I'm going to do is Rizz. So Rizz is the villain from season 2, and I love Rizz actually. I think he's a really fun character. He's cool and kind of scary and intimidating, but also like human, if you pardon the fact that they're all animals. So I actually really like Rizz, but Rizz is obviously not the best person, although I don't think that he's not complete evil or anything close to that. So obviously his biggest crime that we know is that he, you know, he devoured Tem, and I think that would be, obviously that is completely horrible and awful and disgusting, and Tem, you know, didn't deserve that. But we do know in flashbacks that Rizz didn't. It was not premeditated, so I think it would be classified as third-degree murder or second. Basically, Rizz, you know, accidentally injured Tem, and then Tem ran from him, and he chased him, and he lost control of his carnivorous instincts and ended up eating him, which is obviously horrible, and it's not like Tem didn't deserve that, and it's like definitely a huge moral failing on Rizz's part. We do also know that some of Rizz's mental instability came from the fact that the government of Beastars forces bears above a certain weight to take drugs. That limits their physical strength. And these created really painful side effects for Rizz, and this caused him to feel very isolated and alone, and probably contributed to his mental instability that caused him to end up hurting Tem accidentally. Of course, he still made the choice to, but we know that there were lots of pressures to do so. I mean, like, stresses more likely. He was under a lot of mental stress, and that is no justification for what happened, but it's basically saying that he didn't mean to do it. It just kind of happened, and he wasn't exactly happy about it, and later he tried to justify it to himself, saying that, you know, Tem was, like, okay with being eaten, but after the fight with Legoshi, he realizes that, like, it's not true, and that, like, Tem was his victim, so he kind of comes to that realization. Also, we have to mention his many other crimes, obviously not just the main one, that he, you know, threatens to kill Legoshi when he finds out. He threatens to kill Pina. He kidnaps Pina. He threatens, like Pina in the restroom. So he's definitely committed other crimes in addition to Tem's murder. We can only assume that he would have killed Legoshi, and then Pina had Legoshi lost the fight. And yeah, so obviously those not good situations. So Rizz is definitely not a saint by any means. In fact, he's a pretty bad person, but the story does show that there were exterior factors that made him into a worse person and put him under more stress than maybe he needed to be, and that his violence came out of a feeling of being very alone, which is not a justification for it, but I don't think that Rizz, he wasn't born a monster, and he didn't, like find a thrill in like killing people or anything like that. Like, the first one was an accident, and then everything else was trying to cover up for what he did. But he's definitely still a bad person. But so I'm gonna go, but I still like him as a character. I think he's like fun. And so I'm gonna go ahead and give Rizz a D rank. He maybe even deserves to be an E, but I picked D just because I felt like there is a part of Rizz that is, definitely still a human being, for lack of a better word, even though he's a brown bear. And the fact that he doesn't kill indiscriminately, the chance when him and Legoshi were fighting in the bathroom and the janitor comes up, like, he chooses not to kill her, even though he could have. You could argue that was also self-preservation, because if you kill a janitor, that's another murder to cover up and more chance to be caught. But I like to think that there's some something in there. So we're definitely done a lot of bad stuff. But we're gonna go ahead because of exterior factors and the fact that we know that Rizz, he didn't want to be this way originally, and that he acknowledges his errors in the end, that we're gonna go ahead and put him in firmly in the D rank. All right. So the next character I think I'm going to do is Bill. I love Bill. He's so funny and crazy, and yeah, he's just kind of an icon, honestly. So yeah, but I wouldn't say Bill's the best person. He kind of reminds me of like one of the more neutral characters, although he definitely is kind of a wild child and definitely does some things that I think are actually morally wrong versus some of the others that are just more actually true neutrals. Bill, for example, one of his things is in season 1, he dopes with rabbit blood, which, he knows is the blood of a sentient living being. We also know that he eats an old man's finger off a live person in the Black Alley Market. We learn later that he goes to the Black Alley Market somewhat regularly, like once a month or so. I can't remember exactly what he says to Alba, but and obviously you could argue that even though carnivores need to eat meat, that breaking the law and going and eating sentient or once sentient herbivore corpses is probably definitely a moral failing. But you could also argue as a carnivore that's his natural instinct. So it is still bad, but maybe not for no reason. Like Bill doesn't find just like joy in just like desecrating corpses or hurting people. Yeah, and we know that Bill does do some good things. We know that Bill actually cares about his herbivore classmates. That he openly says in one of the chapters later that he loves them and he wants to protect them. But he says like obviously he'll never say that like aloud because it's like embarrassing or whatever. And we know that when there's a power outage in season 1, that he gets with all the other carnivores around to protect the herbivore members of the drama club, and we have no reason to think that is ingenuine. We know that he actively is worried about Louis when Louis goes missing. And he kind of does admire Louis, even if he also kind of resents him a little bit for being kind of an annoying deer. We know that he likes Else and that he wants to protect her, and yeah, and we do know that he is very capable of good things. For example, I guess you could say it's more of like a lack of a bad thing, but when this is way later in season 3, when he finds the shock egg and the little baby comes out, he obviously has a moral failing that he thinks about eating it. That's not good. But when Pina comes in and stops him, Pina basically presents him the choice with heavy shame undertones. Love Pina. Basically, oh, you can eat it and like whatever, I won't say anything. We don't know if Pina would or would not have said anything, but Bill then chooses to do the right thing and to try to save the baby. So that's great. The only thing that maybe isn't great is that he hesitated in the first place, and we don't know that if Pina didn't step in, Bill would have just committed that horrible, horrible crime. But thank goodness Pina was there, so now we don't have to think about that. And we know that Bill did grow attached to that that baby chick throughout their short time raising it before they handed it over to the authorities. And so we know that he is growing as a person, and Haru, the mangaka, even mentions that in one of the little text boxes, like, you know, Bill, he's growing towards being a man, you know, like, and so yeah, definitely valuable, but also not too bad. We do know that also Bill does actually, like, for example, him and Legoshi's big fight in season 1, like, Legoshi starts it. Like, I mean, Bill obviously is using the rabbit blood, which is not good, but it's Legoshi that comes out on stage and assaults him. So you could argue that maybe it was self-defense, although he's obviously pretty cruel, but Legoshi also beat the shit out of him when he scars up Legoshi's back. And obviously he also knows, and one scene I think is interesting for kind of Bill's morality is when Legoshi confronts him about the rabbit blood in the bathroom. He reassures Legoshi that it's not from a student, that he got it from, you know, an older punk student. And I think that's important because it shows that Bill wouldn't want to break the school rules of obviously hurting another student that he would see as one of his, like, classmates and friends. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe Bill's more chaotic neutral, you know? So I think I'm going to go ahead and give him a C. I'm going to go ahead and give him a C. All right, for our next character, I'm going to do Pina. So I love Pina so much, and I actually think that he's a really good person. This might surprise you all, but Pina's obnoxious, but he's actually, like, really freaking heroic. Like, if you look at the story and his actual actions, he does some very small wrong things. Like, I guess we can start with those since there's way more heroic stuff to talk about. He's kind of abrasive towards carnivores a little bit, saying things like carnivores are ugly and that, like, herbivores are way more beautiful, which, yeah, is pretty much is an awful thing to say. Pretty funny though, but, you know, still definitely bad. Also, we know that he's a playboy, so you know, he plays around with different girls, which, you know, probably is not good, especially if he's sleeping with all of them. He could be breaking their hearts, and, you know, obviously he's disrespecting them and himself if he's not interested in a serious relationship, which we very clearly know that Pina is not. So those are definitely, like, small or, you know, so significant moral failings. But for the most part, Pina is actually surprisingly heroic. The fact that when he hears about Legoshi and Rizz, like, he hears that Rizz is the murderer, he steps in as an herbivore, putting his own body in life at risk to save Legoshi because he thinks that Rizz will kill him, you know, which Rizz said he would. And he does this twice, that he physically puts himself in a harm way to protect Legoshi in his own way. And that is, he is risking himself for another person he doesn't even know that well. And that is extremely heroic. We also know that in the Shock Egg chapter that it's Pina who steps in and basically tells Bill that, you know, he leaves the decision up to Bill, but he intervenes, and it is through his intervention that child's life is saved, which is amazing, you know. And so Pina overall, he's actually a pretty heroic guy. Like, the fact that when Rizz kidnaps him, he's pretty competent, by the way. He manages to escape by himself. And then he calls the police, but what I kind of thought about later, I was like, he also goes with the police, like, to where he knows Legoshi and Rizz are fighting. And, like, he did not have to come himself, once again, kind of putting himself in harm's way, but he does that because he is concerned and he wants to make sure that Legoshi is okay. And so Pina is just overall a great guy. Like, honestly, I want to say that his heroic actions, like, completely outweigh his, like, less than ideal things, kind of like Juno. Like, he's done some stuff that's messed up, but, like, straight up, he basically is a saint. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him in S tier, which is kind of hilarious and maybe, like, does not deserve it, because he is kind of a little shit, but he is actually a really, really good person. And other than him like sleeping around with girls and being obnoxious, he's like, yeah, he's just like done pretty much like just heroic actions. So good on you, Pina. Okay, so the next character we're going to do is Melon. So Melon is the main villain from the third arc that is not yet completed. I absolutely adore Melon. I think he's a really fun character, but very, very bad. So like I kind of want to like low key. I was like, oh, it's obvious where he's gonna go, but then also I was like, ooh, I could play devil's advocate and like really piss people off. But we're just gonna go through it real quick. But I think we pretty much all know where he's gonna end up. Melon is a mass murderer. I laugh, but like it's horrible. I think he said he's killed like over 40 people. So yeah, he's a pretty bad dude. He committed his first murders when he was a child, and he's like probably in his mid-30s now, so he's been killing for a long time. Yeah, and really there's not much you can do to justify his actions. You could talk about how he was a hybrid and he was discriminated against and bullied in school, so that probably had a negative effect on his psyche. You could also argue that the disappearance of his father and probably had a negative effect on his mental health as well. And obviously his mother was, you know, if you know, you know. I mean, she was crazy. Okay, and she low-key was like, ooh, she made him so fucked up. I mean, he was already messed up, but like I feel like Melon, he's got some serious mommy issues, and like he should. Like honestly, seeing those scenes, I'm like, bro, like what, bruh, like how did Haru, the author, even invent situations this disturbing to read? Because like respect to her creativity, because bruh, no. So Melon definitely did not have a good support system growing up. No father, crazy ass mother, no friends, actively bullied in school. So, you know, that it is not good, you know, and that probably, you know, did affect him and make him a worse person. But I don't really think you can justify the murder of so many people with he had a traumatizing childhood, which he definitely did, but it still doesn't justify all the people that he killed. And a lot of times he killed them not for any particular reason, but just because he either wanted to or he wanted to try to feel something, or feel a desire. So not exactly for like, these deaths are not exactly manslaughter or like accidental or like out of vengeance or something. They just straight up be a horrible person. So yeah, I think Melon pretty much belongs in E tier. I don't really think there's any other place I could put him in any good conscience. He's a really fun character, super entertaining to watch. Legoshi and him go back and forth. But definitely not a good person, and he needs to probably go to jail for the rest of his life. I think that would be the best thing for society and probably for him. Definitely super entertaining though, and I can't wait to see this arc conclude. He's like, I can't tell if him or Rizz, which one is my favorite villain, but I think it's probably Melon. He's like the Joker of Beastars, and he's just a really fun character. So yeah, we're gonna put him in E tier easily. Okay, so the next character we're gonna do is Yaffa. I love Yaffa. I basically love all the Beastars characters. And Yaffa's kind of interesting. Like, it took me a hot minute to kind of think about you know, where I wanted to put Yaffa. So Yaffa's the Beastar, and he's obviously like kind of low-key a superhero. I mean, he's like a superhero within the law. He like basically goes out and he takes out bad guys and like defends herbivores. We see him in the scene with like at the milk factory where he comes and like defends all those women. We know that he saved the rats that he like later befriends, or I don't know if they're mice or rats. I think they're mice. From the abusive cops. We know that he's taken down a leopard gang. We know that he goes after like tusk hunters, like, and like he does so alone. Like, he is a legend, okay? Like, and he's risking his life and limb like every single mission, and he doesn't even hesitate, my boy. And another thing that, like, damn, he is so impressive is he's over 50 years old. Okay, he even mentions, like, I'm getting too old for this, okay? So, like, he's dedicated decades of his life repeatedly risking his own body and health and life for society to try to make it a more peaceful place, like the most perfect society that he can. And that's a noble goal. You could argue that, like, maybe he's doing it slightly for his own egotism, since he says, like, everything has to be perfect for him. But once again, even if you're doing something good for, like, a questionable reason, I mean, he's literally trying to make the perfect society with, like, no violence and prejudice and, like, fighting, you know? So yeah, in that way, he's, like, a super, super good person. His only quorums, that is not, I don't know what word I'm trying to use, but, is definitely his more violent tendencies. Imagine that a horse that goes off in the middle of the night and, like, beats criminals up is violent. When he gets angry, especially when in regard to his old partner like Gosha or Gosha's Legoshi, his grandson, he can get a little violent, a little angry, a little oh no, you know, no. But yeah. And I can't really justify that. That is him literally just letting his temper get out of control, and sometimes even going to the extent of physically trying to punch, kick, you know, whatever, hurt somebody. We also, you know he had that very uncomfortable scene with Legoshi where he told him to apologize for being born of the specific race that he was, which is, like, pretty awful and disgusting, and he shouldn't have never said that. And then Legoshi proceeds to, you know, do what Legoshi does. But I kind of, like, Yaffa's not technically responsible for that because, like, he doesn't, like, demand that Legoshi, like, do that to his fangs in that scene when they're together at Yaffa's house for dinner, or, like, in his penthouse apartment. Or I don't really know where they are, but, like, the top of the police station in that big room. Like, Yaffa isn't like, oh, like, you know, mutilate your mouth. He just is being, like, a complete total dick, and, like, you know, he like demands Legoshi, like, apologize for being a carnivore, which is, like, so messed up. Like, what is wrong with you? So yeah, like, basically, like, his personality is, like, not great, but also his deeds for overall Beastar society, like, you have to, like, acknowledge, like, all the good that he's done. He's saved probably so many people's lives and taken so many violent criminals off the streets. Like, you probably can't even, like, name them all on one hand. Like, so yeah, so for that reason, after thinking about it, I decided I was going to put Yaffa in the B tier. I can't tell if this is too low or too high. I think it's just right. Like Goldilocks's pudding. Is it pudding soup? Stew? I don't know. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I'm like the most. Anyway, because I think B fits well because, you know, he does great things for society, and he also kind of has an awful personality, but, like, don't we all? So I'm very comfortable putting him in B tier. Yes. Alright, so the next person we're going to do is Gosha. Gosha is Legoshi's grandfather, and just a complete, sweet, wholesome grandfather. Like, honestly, love Gosha. He's so great. So in terms of Gosha's morality, I would say overall Gosha's a really good person. He's never done anything specifically, like, bad or harmful. In fact, I'm going to go into a little bit later, but the only things that he's ever done, it's more of things like he maybe could have done or should have done. So they're more of, like, negligence on his part rather than actually taking action that ends up hurting other people. To go through Gosha's good things is he obviously is a loving grandfather. He obviously really cares about Legoshi, and if Legoshi ever needed anything from him, if Legoshi literally was like, Grandpa, please come, like, you know, Gosha would be freaking ripping out of his house, like, speeding down the road, just being a complete animal, okay, to get to his grandson. And it's great that he loves his grandson so much. We know that he loved his wife so much that he literally, like, kind of quit his old dream of being a Beastar or Beastars with Yaffa. And
you know, you could say that it was, you know, kind of a maybe like a bad thing that he like left Yaffa, but I don't think it was like, you know, it wasn't any malice towards Yaffa. Like, he still loves Yaffa, but like he just wanted to start this family with his wife, and he knew he wouldn't be able to do that as the Beastar in the way that he wanted to. And so he made that choice for himself. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Of course, it was unfortunate that him and Yaffa couldn't do the thing they dreamed about doing together, but sometimes life just goes on that way. We know that he visits mixed breed children on the weekends, mixed species, at an orphanage, or I think it's a daycare center actually, but like that is just like really sweet. It's just him literally giving his time and energy, you know, to be a volunteer to kids that probably don't get that much attention, and he reads to them, and he's clearly very kind and generous. We know that he's very careful with his poison around his neighbors, that he has like a whole giant gallon of disinfectant that he's always like rubbing people down with, and like because he really just doesn't want to hurt anyone. And I think that's like obviously a very good thing. It shows he's very considerate of other people. We know that he is very, very slow to anger in most situations, except for when it comes to a couple situations. But for example, Yaffa literally like comes into his house and starts like kind of beating him up, and Gosha doesn't even care. Like, he's like literally like, okay, like calm down, buddy. Like, here's some disinfectant, and like don't break my house, please. But like you can keep punching me if you want. Like, so he's very like kind of mellow and chill when he wants to be. Of course, he will like vigorously defend people. For example, like the children of like mixed species, when the bats are there in the daycare center, he like damn, and he like, you know, popping off a little bit, you know. But like he's doing that to defend children, so like totally justified. Plus, we don't have any evidence that he actually kills any of the bats or even seriously maims them. So yeah. And another thing is he kind of goes gangster on those birds in the alleyway with his son Legoshi, but they kind of were going to jump them. So that was self-defense too. Plus, we know that they, you know, like Gosha didn't kill any of the birds. They were all just unconscious. And I think Yaffa runs into them later. But anyway, so Gosha's a good person overall, like a really good person. My only thing is maybe he could be like a bit more involved in like his grandson's wife, or like his grandson's life, or like his daughter's, Lino, before she like tragically passed away. I just feel like, I think it's because Gosha is just so like in his soul, he actually is like gentle and kind and almost timid. But like sometimes I feel like he needs to like, or not that he needs to, he can live his life however he chooses to, but like I think some of the tragedies in Legoshi and his mother's life could have been prevented if maybe Gosha was a bit more like assertive with his like place in their life. For example, like when he saw his daughter like shutting herself away and like becoming more and more secluded, it's possible he didn't really realize how bad things were getting, and I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure if he like knew what was going to happen to her, he would have tried really, really hard to prevent it. But, you know, we kind of get the vibe that he wasn't that concerned about it. And if he had been like more, like interactive with her and more kind of like almost like, yeah, like assertive in his like love for her, like I'm coming in, like I'm not going to let you like seclude yourself from everyone. Like I love you. I need you. Like that kind of stuff. Maybe it could have prevented what ended up, the tragic end of her life. And as for Legoshi, he tries his best, but he did kind of send his grandson off to boarding school, and he asks his Legoshi. It's not like he shipped him away. And then Legoshi says, yeah, sure, like Jax is gonna be there, so sure. And also I get that he might understand that his grandson was going to be uncomfortable in the house where his mother once lived, but now she was passed away, and I understand that, but he's still like, you know, like Legoshi was then cut off from all family, like, and it's not explicitly clear, like, we know it was kind of Legoshi's decision to not go back to see his grandfather during holidays and stuff, but once again, like, and I'm sure Gosha just didn't want to, like, be intrusive or, like, hurt Legoshi further, but, like, I feel like he could have, like, made more of an effort to be, like, I'm here, like, I'm here for you, and kind of intrude into Legoshi's life, even if Legoshi didn't want that, because, like, you know, especially during Arc 1, like, Legoshi is struggling with, like, his carnivorous instincts and, like, his, like, assault on Haru and stuff, and I feel like if he had a male figure to turn to that could explain to him, like, how to, like, deal with his carnivorous instincts and how to control them, I feel like that could have been really like a helpful tool, and like a support system for Legoshi. Well, he kind of had to figure it out on his own, which is fine. And I don't think Gosha ever intended that. I think Gosha just is doing the best he can, and he's not really sure like how to be that more assertive guy. And later, obviously, he does reconnect with Legoshi when Legoshi reaches out to him, and we know that how much he loves Legoshi, and we know that he obviously loves his daughter greatly too. So yeah, for all of those reasons, that was like a lot of reasons, kind of like sad at the end, like, oh my gosh, their family, but like I do think that Gosha is overall a really good person. I think he's kind to others. I think he's like an extreme family man. I think he would do anything for his family, maybe too much for his family. No, I don't know. But he's a really good person overall. And so we're going to go ahead and say that he gets an A, just like Legoshi. So he taught his grandson everything he knew. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to put him, in A tier. Alright, so the last character on our tier list today, I'm sorry if I didn't get to everyone that you wanted me to get to. If you guys want to leave some in the comments, maybe I'll do another one, maybe. I kind of tried to do all the main characters and all the characters that I felt like I had enough to talk about. Of course, I didn't hit all the ones that I could have, but this video is already really long, and I have to edit it. So our final character for today is going to be Gohin-san, Mr. Panda. And I really like Gohin-san. I think that he's a really good person, and he is like so cool. Like, he's so epic. Like, you just look at him and you're like, damn, I wish I could be as cool as that panda bear. Like, that sounds so weird. And I think it's so funny that Haru took such like a lovable, like, you know, like the way that like we see panda bears in like the human collective is like these cute little dopey little dumb little bamboo eating, like, you know, crawling, like, you know, like just cute. And I think it's kind of funny that she made like her panda bear like a swole, like badass, like almost like daddy figure. That's so gross. I'm sorry, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like very, very masculine, very competent, hardcore, you know? And I just think that's kind of a funny contrast. But anyway, so as for Gohin-san's morality, I think it's pretty inarguable that Gohin-san is a great person. Well, there's one thing I can think of that he did wrong, but like, oh, no. So Gohin-san is the doctor of the back alley market, and he literally like risks his own like life and health to like capture savage carnivores and then rehabilitate them. And obviously these carnivores cannot pay him. We know that he gets like some funding from like hospitals with sympathetic carnivore doctors. But mostly he's just doing this of like his own goodwill. Like, he just literally wants to reform carnivores. Like, that's it. There's no like selfish reason, at least that we know of. We know that in the past, in season 1, we don't know much about his past, but we know that he said, I put my beast self to bed a long time ago, and it shows like that little flashback of him getting like attacked by a carnivore. So we know that, you know, basically that experience probably changed him, and it made him want to like kind of help carnivores and also make it safer for everyone involved. Basically what he does hurts no one. He's basically a saint. We also know that he trains Legoshi and that he also trained Kyu. Oh gosh, I won't say much about her because I'm not sure. I think she's past 160 in the comic. Maybe she's not. I'm trying not to give too many spoilers past 160, but I don't really remember where things are. So anyway, he's trained multiple people under him for free. So basically just like showing them how to be a vigilante, which is what he is. But he's not just a vigilante. He cares about what people, like what happens to them after he captures them. He literally spends weeks, months, like so much resources, time, and patience on trying to rehabilitate carnivores. And then he wants them to go out and like live like a prosperous, peaceful life with society. And Legoshi even brings up like, isn't it bad that you just let them go instead of like reporting them to the police? And Gohin-san basically says that like this is his code. Like, I don't really know how to explain it, but basically Gohin, he's kind of like, I'm a carnivore, and like this is the way that I show my, like, it's his way of doing good. And you could argue that that's a moral failing on his part, not reporting them to the authorities. But we know that Gohin-san doesn't let people go unless they're like, he's very, very confident that they're reformed. In fact, he reforms people so much. At least we don't know if this happens a lot of the time. I assume it doesn't happen in the majority of cases, but in the one standalone chapter where it tells the story of him reforming a female fox. She's a special kind of fox, but I don't remember what species she is. In the end, he changes her life so much that she chooses of her own volition to turn herself into the law because she wants to actually, you know, pay for her crime and like so she can move on. And like that means he like all of it worked, you know, and we can imagine, even though I don't think that's the majority of cases, that Gohin really can affect not just getting the carnivores back to a place of being able to interact with society, but that he makes them better people and reflect on their actions and feel guilty about it. And not in a shaming way, but in a way of, I have committed a large sin and I need to like find forgiveness for this sin. And I might need to actually, you know, receive some punishment from law in order for myself to be able to move on and for that family to have closure, you know? And so like, honestly, like Gohin-san, oh, another thing, Legoshi, a crazy kid. He's known for like 2 hours in arc 1, goes off to like a mafia house full of lions, and Gohin-san like of course comes to his rescue, once again risking his life, his limb, like, you know, basically to help this kid he barely knows. So that is obviously very good. The only thing I could say is that is bad is we find out in arc 2 that he left his wife and child. So Gohin, please go back to your wife and kid. So that is definitely not good that he just abandoned his family, but I don't think you can ever justify that, but he does have a dangerous line of work, so it's possible that in not being with them, he's protecting them in some kind of selfish way, but I would definitely say that's a big moral failing. You should not leave your wife and kid, especially because like it is not clear if he told them where he, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing to like tell her and then disappear, but it's another to just disappear, and we're not really sure which one it is, if the wife knows and she's kind of okay with them being separated, or if the wife literally has no idea where he went and he just vanished into the night. I want to think he would tell her, but like I have no idea. So that's definitely a bad thing. But that's really the only moral failing I can think of. He gives free therapy to just people he finds on the street. So like, no contest. Okay, Gohin-san is S tier. Okay, like, because yeah, the wife and kid thing, that's pretty bad, but like everything else he does is like good, you know, it is very good, and he's just straight up a really good person. You know, he like respects carnivores, he respects herbivores. Like, Gohin-san is great. So yeah, thank you everybody if you made it this far. I don't know how that's possible, but also thank you so much. I hope everything in your life is going good right now, and if it isn't, I hope it's gonna get better soon, and I know it will. So just hang in there. So thanks again for watching, and I hope that you get everything, all the relief you've been looking for, and that everything goes well for you. And hang in there if you're struggling, and everything's gonna be okay. Okay, you're way stronger and braver than you think you are. And I just okay, bye bye bunnies.